Today I'm going to try talking to the camera at eye height whilst gesturing ferociously and, generally just chatting. So this is the next video in the 22kill.com chain of videos that I'm going to do that is teaching people how to start to deal with PTSD. So we've spoken a little bit about what it represents and where it comes from, what it actually means to have your brain hijacked by this reptilian monster that at the slightest sign of any threat or even the memory of a previous threat fires off and completely overreacts. It completely distorts the processing of threat and the reaction to threat, because the HPA axis in your brain, the threat mechanism that determines what is an appropriate threat and what is an appropriate response to that threat, is now off kilter. It's not broken, it's malfunctioning, it can be fixed. The way we fix it is exactly the same way as in which you can emotionally re-regulate somebody. So PTSD people, combat veterans with PTSD, if they're tested for borderline personality disorder, they tick a lot of the same boxes. It is not borderline personality disorder, but it looks like it. And it could be somewhat useful to the extent that the remedies that are prescribed for borderline personality disorder will work for people who've been exposed to a lot of horrifying violence and had their internal boundaries crushed by it, if they use the same techniques and tactics that work to ameliorate the symptoms of borderline personality disorder. And one of the things that borderline personality disorder therapies seek to address is that, look, it's an impact, it's a mood disorder. Your mood, your feeling, your state on a day-to-day basis is highly dysregulated. What is the problem with that for combat veterans? Well, be they men or women, it is likely that combat veterans have a self-perception that is more, there are certain political leanings that they're more likely to have, there are certain worldviews they're more likely to have, but they will probably value their independence, their strength, and their decisiveness and their ability to handle pressure. So why then is PTSD so awful? Because for these people, particularly for all of us, we would all be impacted by this, but for these people like myself, I share those values. It's very shameful to then have these emotional and psychological issues afterwards. Thank God we've moved forward and we live in times where we can actually talk about these things in a way that is reasonable, because 116 years ago, people were being shot for cowardice if they displayed the symptoms of what was then known as battle stress or battle fatigue. The authoritative hierarchy above them panicked that if a lot of infantrymen decided that they didn't go to war, they would lose control of them, and they thought that one of the best ways to deal with that was to punish a few of them very, very harshly. Many people who were actually convicted of cowardice were actually not shot, but too many were. How many is too many? Any at all. Nobody should have been shot for having a reasonable human response to the horror of warfare. I mentioned before the crushing of internal boundaries. So let me give you two tips that is actually going to help you. One is you need to be aware of your state, your physical, emotional and psychological state on a moment-to-moment basis. This is going to help you to develop a discipline and a structure to emotionally re-regulate yourself. I'm going to train you through these videos to combat the enemy that you were not trained for in military training, because they don't understand it and they don't know about it. Most of psychology struggles with this subject because it's very hard to treat people with PTSD. One of the reasons why it's hard to treat people with PTSD is because they become allergic to therapy. The therapeutic process becomes the very thing that fires them off. So this is probably a good way of doing it. You can tune into a free YouTube clip, you can take a few techniques. If you like the medium and you like the messenger and you like the message, then you can play with it in your own time and you're still in control. Nobody is invading your space and telling you this is how you need to do it. So become aware of your state on a moment-to-moment basis and the things that impact your state. And your objective with this is to maintain a good state as much as possible. Maintain a good state. What does that look like? So if you are feeling peaceful and calm and centered and in control of yourself, let's say that for the purpose of this exercise, which is overcoming PTSD, that is your goal state. If you want to, if you choose to and you find it useful, you could go away now and physically write down with a pen and a piece of paper what the attributes of your goal state would be. For me, I would say mental clarity, sanity and peace, stability, being centered in the self and being calm. That would be a goal state if I was suffering the symptoms of PTSD. How do you then get there? Well, let's first then, so you've written down your 5 things, let's look at the things you shouldn't do. Let's make a list of 5 things that are not going to help you to be in a good state. So, not sleeping, relying too much on drugs and alcohol to self-medicate, not training, not getting outside in the sun and doing moderate exercise. I need to talk about exercise and PTSD, and I'll make a footnote once we finish this list. And then the 5th one could be not eating properly and not hydrating properly. So don't get mad at me for giving you these bullshit common sense fucking blur. Everybody knows that, but I don't feel like doing it. I know, so you have to have the fucking discipline to go and do it. There's no drill instructor there. There's no angry sergeant there now that is going to make you do it. So who's going to do that? You need to do that. So now there is no external locus of control. Nobody's telling you to do it, but I'm telling you to tell yourself to do it. To be the sergeant inside your own head, to be the drill instructor inside your own head that says, hey, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up at a decent time, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take some exercise. I'm going to come back, I'm going to look after, I'm going to clean myself, I'm going to shower myself, I'm going to dress properly, I'm going to take care of this entity that is me, and I'm going to eat properly and I'm going to eat healthily. When you do that and you get up slightly earlier in the morning, maybe an hour earlier than you are right now, and you take moderate, calm exercise, take care of yourself, the knock-on effect through the biological and psychological system is you will then go to sleep earlier that night and you will sleep right the way through. Sleep is a big issue for me because of various reasons. This kind of work actually impacts my sleep quite a lot. It can send me into emotional flashbacks, but emotional re-regulation, I'm calming down. I used to abuse drugs, I used to abuse food, sex, anything really that would get me out of myself, but I have that list that says, hey, these things are not helping. If you want to be able to live in a sane, emotionally regulated space, you need to calm that shit down. Okay, so you've written 5 attributes that will make up your goal state. 5 things that you're maybe doing right now that are not going to fucking help you get into that goal state. This is a goal state for every day. And this is training. It's back to drill. The more you do it, the stronger you will be at doing it. It's a skill. It's a strength. Do it again, and then do it again. And make controlling how you feel and being in a good state, a positive state, taking care of yourself, something that you want to do. That then trickles down into the people closest to you and they'll start feeling better and we can start moving forward and, walking out of the horrendous, hellish state you can get locked in. We can actually walk away from it step by step. But it takes a lot of bravery and it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a lot of self-control, and your own system is going to push back. It's going to fight with you. So you've got to be ready to fight. You've got to be in this fight and you've got to be ready to move forward, because when that negative feedback is coming this way, you've got to have that determination to be like, fuck you, get out of the way and keep going. Don't stop just because it hurts a little bit. Don't stop just because it's inconvenient. Keep fucking going and go for it. You've got to do this aggressively and with tenacious resolve, or it won't work, because you're now fighting primal unconscious systems of the human entity that are from ancient times that are evolved to keep you safe, and they're hurting you. They don't mean to do that, but they're malfunctioning. The system is in malfunction. There's fucking alarms going off. Beep, 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 beep. We're going to crash. We're losing altitude. We're at the wrong fucking tilt right now. We're in the wrong attitude as well as altitude. Beep, 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 beep. Alarm. That's what you're living in right now if you're suffering a lot of PTSD flashbacks, is you're in a state of alarm. The alarm bells are ringing every day. So we need to get back into the right attitude, our relationship to the ground. We need to get back to the right attitude, and we need to straighten up and fly right. I think that's a Frank Sinatra song. Okay, so We've got our 5 attributes of our goal state. We've got the 5 things we're going to not do anymore because they don't help us. You know, caffeine and nicotine, even that, guys, I love caffeine. My God, I love caffeine so much. But you've got to restrict that. You've got to restrict it. Nicotine, you've got to be careful. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to control your state. These things are stimulants. They could, if they're still working, they'll stimulate you so you become adrenalized, and that can fire off a flashback. Or if they're no longer working because you're so hardened to them, they will stimulate you into a crash, and then you'll feel depressed. So then you will be creating a fight response or a freeze response. Neither are good. Anxiety, depression, neither are good. So be careful, even with over-the-counter, taxed, wink, legal drugs, the taxable drugs. They're not safe. It's not okay. Alcohol can be disastrous. Way more disastrous than weed or ecstasy or the non-taxable illegal drugs. For people who are emotionally dysregulated, because one of the effects of alcohol is emotional dysregulation. It's disinhibiting. It takes the brakes off, so you'll feel a little bit of emotion, and then add alcohol, and the emotion goes, "Bleh," and it's off the charts. Okay, so 5 elements of our goal state, 5 things we're not going to do anymore. Now we come to this thing over here, which is our boundaries. So I said to you before, one of the effects of suffering from PTSD is the smashing of internal boundaries. I've been giving this a lot of thought recently, walking around, doing my walking meditation. How am I going to help people with PTSD? Thinking about the process of going into the military. I wanted to join the military, I wanted to join the army, I wanted to be in the parachute regiment. I actually did several potential officer courses around the country with different infantry regiments. And it had an unusual impact on me unconsciously. And I realized that one of the objectives of the basic training, so officer training at Sandhurst in the UK for the first 6 to 9 months, mirrors the basic training of an infantryman. They're trying to mold you into a soldier. They're molding you into their version of what they want you to be, what they want you to do, and what they want you to think. And they even dictate the point at which you wake up, you go asleep, when you eat, when you shit, when you shower. You know, if they could, they would control how many wanks a day you have. Even I was amazed when they told me, I was doing an interview, and they said, when you go to Sandhurst, the only thing you're allowed to listen to on the radio is Radio 4. And I was like, interesting propaganda, Tavarish. So I was even going to be controlled on what media I could consume to that extent. And there was a lot of that. So I realised, this is a brainwashing process. The reason I didn't go in is because the night before my final RCB for the officer training, I went to a gay bar, had a few drinks, and I got filled in for being gay, which I am not, which I thought was rather unfair. So these things will break your internal boundaries. So basic training smashes your internal boundaries. Look, if I am a government and I want infantrymen or I want soldiers in any capacity, I don't really want people who are going to potentially disobey my orders. I need order. I need there to be orders. You must obey me, and you need to be trained to obey me thoughtlessly. And the ways in which they get you to do that effectively start to erode or erase your internal boundaries. An internal boundary lets me know that your feelings are your feelings, and my feelings are my feelings. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and my thoughts are my thoughts. And it also lets me have an internal boundary between my feelings and my thoughts. If these things break, I don't know the difference between your feelings and my feelings. I don't know the difference between your thoughts and my thoughts. And I don't even know the difference between, in my own system, between my thoughts and my feelings. Sometimes I can have a feeling, oh, my girlfriend is cheating on me, and then it becomes a thought. And even though there is no data to support that paranoid belief, it becomes true for me because I don't have the internal boundary left to say, that's a feeling, it's not a thought. There's no external objective scientific data that backs that. You just feel that way. So let's then rationally focus on the feeling. Can't do that if your internal boundaries are shattered. So you're actually primed. Well, I believe you're twice primed for PTSD. I believe that you'll be primed in childhood, and that most of the people who join the military will have CPTSD from some adverse childhood experiences. Not all, but many. I know I certainly did, and a lot of the guys I met who wanted to be in the infantry, they definitely did. And they tend to have a fight-fawn response, which is the core trauma response for narcissism. But let's not overload on this video. Then your training will give you elements of PTSD and smash up your internal boundaries. Then the experience of actually doing the role that you're trained for will hammer the final nail into the coffin of giving you CPTSD, PTSD, and smashing up your internal boundaries so that you can't heal from the PTSD symptoms. How do we get our internal boundaries back? It is a slow and laborious process, but if you want to overcome PTSD quickly, get stuck in as fast as you can. So there's 2 things I recommend to start to overcome smashing of internal boundaries. One is I have a free course over at buildbetterboundaries.com, all one word, buildbetterboundaries.com, that talks about what boundaries are and will help you to get, because we have boundaries, when we talk about boundaries in common parlance, it's a little bit different than the way psychologists use it. So there's a course there, I think it takes about half an hour to get through, and it will explain all of this stuff in more detail. There's external boundaries where you say no to another person, and then there's internal boundaries where you just basically say no to yourself. A boundary setting, 9 times out of 10 is a no. It's a no. It's something sort of like, my instinct right now is to drink 3 cans of Stella and, smoke some weed. And you have to go, no, that's not going to be in accordance with our goal state and the things that make up our goal state, so I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to control myself. That is also in psychology called an internal locus of control. Nobody externally is telling you to stop it, you tell you to stop it. This is very hard for people who have smashed internal boundaries. Their locus of control tends to become external, or it was forced to be external upon them by a tyrannical process of indoctrination. Okay, so how do we build back up our internal boundaries? Let me give you just 2 tips. 1, start to get in touch with your emotions, your emotional state. So whatever you're feeling, start journaling. I know this all seems a bit hippy-dippy and a bit too head wanky and psychobabbly, but if you don't do it, there is a good chance you will stay sick. If you do it, and you do it like drill, and you do it every day, and you just fucking get the job done, you will start to feel better. You will start getting better as a byproduct of it. So I can't convince you to trust me. Maybe all I can say is, if you have an adventurous spirit and you're curious, you could try it for 3 days, and if it doesn't work, I'm a nitwit who doesn't know what they're talking about, and you can just walk away. If it does work, that you stick with it and you see it through to the end, because it will help you to heal and get better very rapidly. Journal how you feel on a daily basis. How did you wake up feeling? What did you feel during the day? Was there any incidents that happened? And when you're writing how I feel, you only use adjectives that describe feelings. If you're not good at this, just Google adjectives that describe feelings and go and get a list so that you have a very rich vocabulary with which to describe different feelings, and that you learn you're never really just sad or angry. You're sad with traces of whimsy. It's like a cocktail and a twist of melancholia, and and it's got this element of maybe feeling powerless or whatever it is. Oh, it's tinged with shame. We sprinkled a little shame on it. You're never just angry. It could be I feel angry, but there's also jealousy there. There's also insecurity, and you stack your feelings and you learn to study what your feelings are. Because by studying them and describing them, you're acknowledging them, and you're instead of pushing them away, you're bringing them back into your space, back into your system, and back into your unit. This is empowering. Note I said the word empowering. It is not always comfortable. It is not always pleasant. You might find yourself feeling very, very sad and grieving for things that you've lost, or you might find yourself feeling righteous indignation and anger. Grief and anger, when properly digested, when properly processed, are very, very healing emotions. They're good things to feel. So get in touch with your emotions, get in touch with how you feel, and learn to say, you don't have to say it to other people. I'm not going to ask you to sit around in a circle and hold hands and go, I feel like a wonderful pink unicorn today and I'm full of love. You don't have to do that. You can do that. I'm not telling you not to do it. I mean, you could go and do it if you want to do it. But you need to be able to tell yourself. And writing it down or tapping it out on a laptop is really, really going to help. The second thing is that you begin to start processing and teaching yourself that there is a difference between what you feel and what you think. So you're going to, as you're journaling, you'll notice a very strong tendency in yourself when you say to yourself, okay, Rich, what did Richie say? He said to write down an event during the day and then how I felt about it, things that I had feelings about. Well, I think that when my wife speaks to me like this, she shouldn't X and I should always Y. I didn't ask you what you think. We're not talking thinkings, we're talking feelings. So you'll see that tendency. We all do it. Everybody with CPTSD and PTSD, and this is called disassociation. So I'm trying to bring you into this space right here, in the emotions, how you feel, and your instinctive defense response is, fuck that, I don't want to deal with any nasty feelings. Good heavens above, I might actually shed a tear, and how awful and unmanly that would be. And so you bring it straight back up into your head and you disassociate. Oh, my head. Oh, good. Now I can think about this and philosophize and feel like I'm in charge. And you bullshit yourself that you're processing pain and telling, oh, I'm getting over this. I'm totally in the process. You ain't processing shit, homie. Nothing. Nothing is processed like that. It is thought about. You might become philosophically very literate, and you might learn all kinds of psychological, psychobabbly terms for things, but you will not heal one iota by doing this without this. It all happens here. So you've got to learn how to do that. Did I give enough practical advice in this video? Have I gone on enough? I think I have. I'm going to stop there, and we'll do the next step in this process tomorrow. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time and your attention. I hope if you didn't enjoy it, at least you found it useful. That's just my purpose. Just use me. Just use the YouTube thing, the Spartan Life Coach thing. Just use it and walk away. If it's useful and it makes you feel better, then I'm doing your job. That's all I'm here for, is to help people heal, share ideas, and help people to get on with their lives. I'm not trying to create like a cult. Ooh. Okay, that's enough. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and I will speak to you again soon. Cheers.